In the restaurant industry, they talk about, they should say there's a saying, and it's locations, 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 which is really true in the restaurant and bar industry. It's all about locations. As a traveler, locations, there's a little bit more to it than just choosing an assignment of your destination because you really want to go to that city or that town. There's a lot behind locations that the average traveler doesn't always think about until oftentimes it's too late and they're already there or they're already accepted an assignment. So we're going to discuss locations today on this week's edition of Travel Evolved. It's Travel Evolved. I'm Mark Holloway. Welcome to the episode, everybody. I appreciate you joining me today. We're talking about locations today, but I got some housekeeping things I got to take care of. Today's episode is kind of a fun one. We're really going to go into some detail as to really about locations and why it's just not quite as simple as most of you know. This is one of those ones where we're just going to talk openly about things to get you thinking, to kind of get you prepared for your next assignment. And so that you're really starting to look at your year as a career and not just about a knee-jerk reaction as to where do I want to go next? Where do I want to go in this next assignment and what does it pay? And you're really kind of thinking more about a year-long career and a year-long destination plan and a year-long compensation plan, really, too. So, at any rate, I want to talk a couple of housekeeping things. Obviously, I mentioned many weeks ago that... and this is not I knew I was right, but I said something very simplistic a few weeks ago, and that was that I said, there is no way, regardless of how you feel about vaccine mandates, there's no way that they're going to be able to stay with them because, let me get this straight, you've got a shortage of healthcare providers, the ones that have kicked butt for an entire, almost, over 18 months, almost, 20 months, really, 21 months, and you're going to excuse or fire the ones that don't want to get a vaccine. And again, this is not a discussion today about whether or not you believe in vaccines or you don't believe in vaccines. It's more about the mandate. And all I said was, I know facilities, I know hospitals, I know hospital systems. I've been doing this for 22 years now. And when it all comes down to it, hospitals want to make money. I know most of you were probably shocked when you got into healthcare back in the day. Hopefully it wasn't yesterday. Maybe it was. Maybe it was 25 years ago, 30 years ago, when you realized, and all of you did, that hospitals aren't always about public health. They're about money. What? It happened to all of you. It really did. And I'm not laughing because it's really... It's nothing. It's not a laughing matter, but it's just a business matter. I mean, I think everyone has that reality where they go into becoming a healthcare professional. You're in school, or you're in your course, your training, and all of a sudden you get out there and you realize that hospitals aren't ran the way you probably always thought they were ran your entire life. I think the persona is, and I think a lot of recruiters even still think this, is that hospitals are out there to serve the public and they're out there for the public good, and they are. I mean, they do. I'm not trying to take that away from them. But what I will say is, as we all know too well, especially those of you that listen to Travel Evolved and anybody that's been in the industry for any length of time at all, hospitals and medical care is a money-making machine. Period. It is. It's one of the most lucrative money-making machines in our country, if you really break it down. And things that are associated with it, insurance, pharmaceutical, you name it, it's all money-making stuff. So when I said the other week that I don't believe it's going to stay the way it is, this is what I meant. I said all it's going to take is one facility or one system to say, hey, we're not going to mandate vaccines. And everybody else will go, well, we don't want all of our people running to them and over to their side. We'll do it too. And sure enough, as many of you probably are aware, HCA this week, the CEO, I saw the letter from him. He announced that they are staving off the vaccine mandates because they have said that it's not constitutional. It's a Supreme Court, a court decision that says it can't, with the exception of California and Colorado currently, because there's some state mandates that supersede it. But they're holding off, so people are allowed to become exempt from that mandate. And then today, I actually saw a letter from, I want to make sure I get this right, it was from Advent. Same thing. So Advent has jumped on to that as well, and there will be more coming. So, it's good news for our community. There aren't people that are going to have to, because of their beliefs, aren't going to have to quit. And again, it doesn't matter if you believe in vaccines or not. That's not what this is about. What I'm excited about is that there are going to be people that are going to be allowed to work and do their job and continue their career because of what they believe in, whether you believe it's right or wrong. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying for the public and for healthcare in general and for travel healthcare, it's a good thing. I know it might, a lot of you are excited about if you were vaccinated and somebody else wasn't, the rate was going to jump up and you'd be making a lot of money. But your quality of your job and how scary it would be to be that short staff, I think is not a good thing. So at any rate, I said this can't last. This can't continue, because really the point of what I'm saying here is that hospitals like to make money, and if they're going to have to turn patients away or not be able to handle the volume of patients that they need to handle in order to make the revenue that they want to make, they're going to do something. And I said either a bunch of travelers are going to decide to get the vaccine, or a system or a hospital or two, or a hospital system or two are going to choose to figure out a way around it. But it can't just be this cut and dry line, which it turns out so far it has not been. So it'll be interesting to see, like I said, and I said it was going to be interesting to see what was going to happen this fall and this end of the year. And here we are in December, and we're checking out and seeing what's happening. So again, money, which is what, again, I've always said hospitals are the ones that get the money. They get it from the insurance companies. They get it from the general public, and you pay your bills. And they're the ones that dictate everything with regard to being a traveler. They're the ones that set the rate. They're the ones that look at the supply and demand. They're the ones that decide if they even need a traveling professional. They can do it per diem, or they can find permanent staff. It's all generated from the hospital and the hospital systems, or the facility and facility systems if you're in a long-term care situation. It just is. And so for us to not be aware, which is the point I'm trying to make here, of the financial aspects of what it is that we all do, is to me naive. And you got to look at it saying, I understand. And most of you know this. Again, you guys understand this is all about money. Always has been for 20 years. It has nothing to do with vaccines or COVID or anything. It's always been about money. And unfortunately, in our system, that's the way our healthcare works. It is a very big business. It is a very big money generating thing. So there we go. I don't have a point. I'm just trying to say that I just said I knew it wouldn't be able to continue down the course of cut and dry. Here's what it is, because I knew there were facilities that were going to say this is the way it's going to be. And I knew there were travelers that were going to say I'm not going to do this. So somewhere in the middle there had to be some sort of give and take, and we're starting to see that on both sides. By the way, both parties are giving and taking. So there you go. Let's get into locations. I guess the first question I'm going to ask innocently out there is, why is it that you are traveling now? What are you looking for now as a traveler? I think it's a very innocent and honest question. It's one that, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I think we all assumed on our side of the desk, on the agency, side, that there was just a handful of answers as to why it was that people were traveling. I think that's changed a lot all of a sudden. I think there are a bunch of people, as we all know and have documented here, that have gotten into travel because of the financial, how lucrative it is. I mean, it just is. There are people that watched travelers come into their units, their facilities, their areas of expertise, and saw how much money they were making and said, hey, I'd like to get myself some of that too. There are people that have rethought their concept of what travel was. I mean, that's legitimate. It is not the same, in my opinion, as it was 2 years ago. There are things that are better and there are things that are worse about it. But it is changed. It's evolved a little bit to steal our own name. It has evolved quite a bit, I think, into what travel is. So my innocent question for a lot of you is, have you thought about why are you traveling right now? What is the concept? What is the main goal that you have? And it might not just be one thing, by the way. It may be a multitude of things. It might be financial. I think a lot of people have that. It still may be some of those other things that have always been there. I want to find my forever location. I'm considering moving to maybe an area of the country that's more expensive, and I want to see if I can handle it there, if I can handle the cost of living. I want to, do some things other than sit in the same town, in my entire life and work at the same facility. Those still exist, but I do think that while we're looking and talking about locations, one of the innocent things I want you to just kind of pause and question to yourself is, what am I hoping to gain out of travel today, right now? If you're brand new, that may not be a great question because it hasn't changed. But if you've been doing this for any length of time, I want you to really think about that. Has my goal, my reason for traveling, and of course the end result of what I want to accomplish from being a traveler, has that changed at all? And maybe it has, maybe it hasn't, but you really need to start defining that. And I want you to really look at that. If it's changed, I think the point I'm making is recognize that it's changed and realize that maybe before I was, in fact, I'm just using this example, I was looking to see parts of the country. Now I really am trying to make the most out of what my financial gains I can get right now. That's a legitimate thing. And I will tell all of you in my heart of hearts that none of us know how lucrative traveling is going to be in the future. It looks good. I've said that. I may have been right about the mandates, but who knows? I mean, I think it's going to look good. I may be completely wrong there, but I think it's got a good near future. And I'm saying for a few years, but I could be dead wrong about that because none of us really know. But it looks like there is some really good opportunity still. I'm going based upon bill rates, which certainly have dropped over the last couple of weeks in certain parts of the country especially. So I'm seeing bill rates drop, but they're still amazing. I had a couple people that had offers to extend at facilities that were ridiculously high bill rates. They were making a ton of money. And we had to have conversations with them, at my company, that said, hey, they'd love to keep you. But unfortunately, the rates have diminished. 25% is what I'm seeing over the between the first 13 weeks and what's happening now for people that they want to continue right around the first of the year or in the month of January. The good news is they're keeping them. They still want them. It's just, again, supply and demand. We want you. We have a reasonable rate. We can't afford that rate. We don't think we need to pay that rate. It would make sense for us to go out and find somebody else at that rate, but we really like you and really like you to stay. So, it's a little different. A lot of travelers get offended by that right now. Like, well, I was making this kind of money and I'll be darned if I'm going to stay, for less. I would encourage you to really consider that with whatever company you're working for, that, realize it can't stay always high. It may get high again, right? It may get crazy high again. We just don't know. But when you're looking at locations, one of the things you should really look at is I still think, and we'll talk about this quite a bit today, money still comes into play, and it does have effect on locations for all of us. It's, I think it's a rare traveler out there that just looks at something that is a really nice, sunny, warm weather place and doesn't consider at least the cost of living in that community and what that's going to look like in their pocketbook. I think, sure, everybody wants to have the assignment of their choice in a location that they really want to go to. But let's be honest, there are times when you've found that and it just doesn't pay enough. And you're like, darn it, I'm not going to take it because there's a point where it doesn't make sense to me to go to the location of my choice for whatever that reason might be, because the money isn't there. It's not your fault. It's not the facility's fault. It's not the agency's fault, probably, unless they have a really big margin. The fact is that position has a supply and demand where there are enough people that are going to go, that facility is offering at a rate that they know they're going to fill it at. It just doesn't happen to meet your bare minimum requirements of what it needs to be paid. So it's just not for you. That's okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about finances and how I think things are looking. But I will say this. I think location has always, still is, and probably always will be one of the biggest components of what it is that you're looking for in regard to your next assignment. All these things we're talking about come into play, but we really think about it, location is still a big deal. When you guys are talking to your recruiter, let's use this as an example. I mean, many of you are saying, I'll go anywhere based upon a certain rate, but most people still say, here's where I want to go. The first thing the first, I guess, variable that you're giving your company is the location. I mean, I had a company before, still do now, that there are travelers that say, I don't care. I want you to send me everything that is, this and higher. And I want to see all those that are this and higher. And they can. So I mean, to me, I love that traveler because they really are chasing the buck. And I think that's just smart right now, especially with this day and age. But, it doesn't mean you still can't find that locations. But I will say, typically for the last 22 years, the first thing travelers say to a recruiter or to an agency or when they're looking for their next assignment is, here's the list of where I want to go. Sure, it could be licensure dependent and where they're able to work. But after you get through that, here are the areas of the country in which I am considering. And then it's, of those, here's what I want to be able to make. And then you got that decision process. You've got your laundry list of locations and rates, and you're basically doing the Ben Franklin, which is, I don't know if you guys know that sales tactic, where you're going through and you're looking at each location and considering it based upon your level of excitement about the location combined with your level of excitement about the pay. And that's pretty much how you're deciding which positions that you want your company to submit you and put you in front of for consideration. But what I'm saying is it always seems to be the location typically is the forerunner for most people as opposed to the rate. So let's talk about that. And location right now is really based upon still, there's a lot of supply and demand in it, right? You can want to go to Hawaii, but what if it's the middle of summer? And what if Hawaii doesn't have a huge census need? Or well, let's use the same example in some southern states in the middle of summer. Typically, in many years, or most years, the supply and demand still comes into play. There are places in the country that are beautiful, wonderful locations. And I'm not just talking about warm weather. You could be an avid skier. You could love the snow. You could love the mountains. You could love, New England in the wintertime. It doesn't matter. But it all has to be based and predicated on the demand. I mean, great, you want to go there, but if they don't have a need in your specialty, then it plays upon that. So the supply and demand is always going to be there. So when you're looking at stuff, and I have this happen all the time. Let's say someone wants to go to, I don't know, New Mexico, kind of a neutral state, not really, New Mexico can be cold, it can also be warm, so it's not really a seasonal state. But there are people who say, I want to go to New Mexico, I've got a compact state license. And there are times in the year when New Mexico has lower census. And it's all over the place, by the way. It's one of those states that's not really predictable consistently every fall, every winter, every spring, every summer. It's different times of the year when there just happens to be different needs there. So it's a really good example of a place where the supply and demand can really affect it. You may want to go there. I had a traveler recently that really wanted to go to New Mexico, had a really great opportunity early fall, late summer, couldn't take it, wants to go back there now. There's nothing there for her particular specialty. It doesn't mean there won't be, but right now, in the early part of December, they have booked up everybody for their holiday needs. We're already we're halfway through them. We've gotten through, one. We've got a couple more to go. So they're done. Now they may be looking to offer that particular specialty here in the early part of the year. We don't know, and none of us really can predict that. So there is a supply and demand associated with your location, much like, there's other things as well. I mean, again, a facility's reputation, for example, can really affect how many needs there are there. In other words, if you've got a great location, I feel like I want to use an example here, but if I do, you're going to know exactly what hospital I'm talking about, and I'm not in the mood to beat up a hospital. There are places that have it's just a great destination. The community's great, the town's great, whether it's summer, winter, you name it. I'm thinking of a couple in mind. There also happens to be a facility in those locations. There are more than one that has a horrific reputation, has since I've been in the industry. The weird thing about that is there's always a demand for travelers at that location because they suck at staffing. They suck at the way they treat their travelers. I mean, I hate there's no other way to put it. So the great thing is that destination is available all the time. It just depends on how much pain you're willing to endure in order to work at that facility, how scary your job security is, because this happens to be a facility that's known for firing people literally at the drop of a hat with no notice, whether it's census or because you make a little mistake, which it is, that's their prerogative. There's always that need there. So if you're looking to go to that location, I keep almost slipping and saying what it is, and all of you guys will know that if you've been around for a while, you'll know exactly which hospital I'm talking about. So I want to be careful because I'm not trying to make that many enemies on this thing. That's part of it. So the other thing really to look at right now when you're talking about your location, really, I guess the crux of what I want to jump into pretty heavily here is, in fact, that location's current situation now. And of course, I'm talking about COVID. I'm talking about, I guess, crisis staffing. Now, we're not hearing that right now. I have not heard the word crisis staffing or crisis rates in anybody that I'm working with in a while. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen again. Now, the rates are still really, really strong, but the word crisis staffing has not been projected or given to me on a lot of assignments I'm seeing that are brand new right now. The opposite is true. So, but there still are parts of the country right now, and I think there always will be for a variety of reasons, that have increases and decreases in census. This is a little bit less predictable. And it has to do, obviously, with COVID and breakouts and those sorts of things. So whether it's warm weather and cold weather, you don't know. You have to look at a location right now. I think for the first time ever, you have to look at a location based upon how is that community doing with a higher need than normal. How long will that community, do I believe, because again, none of us know, but do I believe that community will continue to have that need? Because it's scary right now to take an assignment at a great rate because they've got a unique need, and it's maybe they're struggling as a community with disease right now and with virus. But how long is that going to last? Am I going to be able to stay there for more than one assignment? I know a lot of you like to do that. Am I going to get through one assignment? Is it going to be where I'm going to get cut immediately if the census drops? So it's a unique situation, and literally it changes. It feels like by the week, and I see it coming in. With my agency and my company, I see it. We've got states that are hot. We're also like, oh my gosh, we're getting pummeled with needs. The only thing I can assume, without having to take the time to delve into reasons why, is that there's an increased need because of what we're all dealing with in the country. Same thing applies the opposite. And we saw that, I'll use Florida example. We saw that in Florida. Florida, the rates dropped, the needs aren't as heavy. I've got a map like many of us do that shows it shows the concentration of jobs, so to speak, in each state. And I can see the biggest need states, and oftentimes they're also the largest area states, obviously. So places like Texas, places like California, places like Florida that are big states have a lot of needs. But when you start looking at some of the smaller states that have a huge amount of needs, you can't help but say that's got to be something that is unusual, has to do with what we're dealing with right now, this day and age. So when you're considering a location, you kind of have to bring that new wrinkle into play as to it's not just about seasonality. It's not just about the hospital reputation. It's not just about, it all comes down to supply and demand, as I said repeatedly, but there is this added wrinkle that we have to deal with right now is that there's a census increase in this state, in this city, in this region of the country potentially, and how long is that census increase going to remain? So there's that. And again, you guys get it. We've got an additional adjective, a different additional variable to consider when you're looking at your locations that we've never had before, and that is almost how long until maybe this particular location or area has an increase. So I get it. It's really difficult for many of you right now when you're considering your location and why. So obviously, the one thing I do want to talk about and mention on locations, I've said this before, so this is kind of a repeat, but for those of you that didn't listen to this episode, I want to talk a little bit here about the cost of living in that town. You really still need to consider that. A lot of you are just jumping on assignments because you're looking at the gross weekly, or potentially if your company gives you a net weekly, you're looking at how much money am I putting in my pocket without putting a lot of consideration to how much money is going to go out of my pocket based upon my living, my food, gas prices, everything right now. It's important to consider that because, like I've said before, sometimes a assignment that doesn't look that high paying in a lower cost of living part of the country might be exactly what the doctor ordered right now. Who knows? It's really hard to say. You could, find a really great situation in a place where maybe you're getting good housing, but you still have that great rate. You guys know, but just look at that before you jump on any assignment. And again, I will say it repeatedly, and I probably won't stop. Be really careful with the top paying positions anywhere in the country. I mean, I just said at the intro of this episode, hospitals are money-making machines. Facilities are money-making machines. They care very heavily about their bottom line. So if you are the most expensive staffing option for them, you will be the first one to have that expense be cut from them or reduced. I mean, you got to start thinking about this, guys and gals. It is important that you are looking at this as your career and understand that take those assignments if you want them, but be prepared to put some of that money away because you may be out of an assignment unexpectedly. So that's just common sense 101. Or take the lower paying, one of the lowest paying ones. You've got job security, if that makes sense. Or go somewhere in the middle where you're getting as much money as you can, but you feel that you're going to get that 13 weeks when you accept an assignment, and potentially some additional extends, if you will, like what I just had happen. They're going to extend, but now it's a reasonable, not reasonable, but it's still a solid rate. Like I say, the extension that we did at that 20 to 25% reduction is still so much stronger than it was in 2019, or early part of 2020, the first half of 2020. It's pretty wild. So I shouldn't say the first half of 20, but the latter part, all of 2019. That's the best way to put it. I'm getting confused as far as when everything started changing. I think it was obviously 2020 when things started hitting. December of 2019, I guess. So if you look at what rates were in that year compared to what even this reduction is, it's still unbelievable. It's still 30% higher than what it was at some of the best places. And we're talking about states right now with some of these extensions are happening that were not the most highest paying, certainly anywhere in the country. So, okay, so let's jump in a little bit more about locations. I think one of the things I kind of want to just have a discussion and just have you guys think out loud with me a bit today is, why do travelers travel to certain locations? What is it that makes those locations more popular than others? Why is it that there are states and areas that nobody ever says, hey, I'm really dying to go there? And why is there some states that are almost always on 80% of every traveler's top 5 list to go with? Let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion. First and foremost, a lot of it does, in fact, and I love you guys for this, as you know, come down to the pay. There are some states that just absolutely pay stronger than others. California is a great example. Year-round, still to this day, has been my entire career, California is still one of the top-paying annual locations you can go to. The cost of living is high. Listen, rewind and just go back to what I just said a few minutes ago. In many areas of California, but not in all, certainly. So, but it's consistently a high-paying state. It pays better. And there are places in California that are beautiful, places that are not so beautiful. It's like a lot of states, has a lot of different feel to it. But that is an example of a state where pay is always a lot higher. Certainly places like Alaska. We'll talk about Alaska a little bit more detail when I get in my next segment here, or the next little discussion. Alaska pays high. There are places that, again, Florida has typically been one of the lower paying places. It just is. They don't have state taxes there, one of the benefits. Their housing hasn't been in the past typically high. It is now. It's getting there. Obviously, it's getting higher, but so are the rates. So pay is a really big draw when you guys are looking at locations. Many people, I know you're looking at locations. I'm kind of muddling the waters a little bit here. But when you guys do look at where you're willing to go, in the back of your mind, you're choosing states and potentially cities that notoriously have a slightly higher or even significantly higher pay rate involved in them. So that's one of the reasons you guys choose a location. It's weird where someone says, I'm going to the middle of the country, some small town, because it doesn't pay well. I mean, that's not typically on a traveler's, first set of variables of where they want to go. Pay does come into play with it very, very heavily, as does really the city or the town, the location itself. I mean, that clearly is the biggest thing still. There are cities and towns for everybody out there. And I don't need to get into too many examples, but everybody is looking for their own experience. And that's what I love about working with travelers. And that's one of the things I think that is one of the biggest mistakes that recruiters and agencies make with travelers is they lump you guys all into into one shell, so to speak. everybody wants to go to California. Everybody wants to go to Florida in the wintertime, and they want to go to Maine in the summer. Not true. You guys all are so individually unique as to what it is location-wise that drives you to the location that you want to go to. And unfortunately, from our standpoint, and I say our, I'm talking about agency, there's no other way around it but to start making assumptions. And the assumptions always are what you see predominantly every time with a traveler. And it's one of the things I think is so bizarre about our industry, and there's really no way around it. You guys have seen me do things, little snippets that my team has had me do, that we put out there on different Facebook groups that really talk about how recruiters all treat you the same, even though you're so individualized. And that's the truth. There's no really true ways around it, because 80% of you are the same. 20% of you are looking for something slightly different. I mean, when you go to buy a car, 80% of people are looking for some sort of quality in their car, whether it's style, it's performance, or it's, economy, you name it. Most people have a certain reason why they walk into that dealership. And we all get lumped into that same thing. Nothing's different with travel. Whether you like it or not, and I think you probably don't, when you are dealing with a recruiter and talking to someone, you are being stereotyped into this traveler is looking for this set of variables when it comes to their location. And it's your job to explain to that recruiter, if you're different, if you have a unique situation that you're looking for with regard to your location, what it is you're looking for. And then you still have to be bombarded, by the way, with them still trying to sell you on the locations that they have, because what you gave them is something they don't have, and they're too scared to admit it because they know you're going to run to another company that has it. They're still going to try to sell you the inventory that they've got. There's no way around that, currently in our industry. It is a recruiter/salesperson industry, and they're going to sell you on that location. So understand that, maybe a young single person has a completely different set of variables and I guess hierarchy of their destination than somebody who's married, who's an empty nester at the twilight of their career. There's two totally different things they're looking for, right? The young person might be looking for entertainment, nightlife, a place to make their forever home, a facility to call their long-term facility. An empty nester, again, I'm stereotyping right now, I get it. An empty nester might be looking for a high-paying position that has, maybe it's not an insanely, high, fast-paced risk assignment, but pays well. Maybe they care less about the actual city it's in. They're looking for a way to retire higher, make as much money as they can, and not kill themselves while they're doing the assignment. I mean, I think that's, again, I'm lumping everybody into a thing, which is all of recruiters do that, but that's probably a little bit more common. What's unusual is when you have the opposite thing, and a recruiter will tell you, "Hey, I've got this, this, and this," and you have to say, "You're not listening. That's not what I'm looking for. I am looking for this city because I want to go. I love nightlife. I love music. I want to go to Austin. I want to go to Nashville or to Memphis. There are places I want to go to the Bay Area because I want to see and experience that kind of thing." You've got to explain to that recruiter why it is that you're doing that, and oftentimes repeatedly beat it into their heads that stop pushing me on stuff I don't want. And let me tell you what I want and go find it for me, and then let me know what your particular pay package is for that so I can compare it to the other 300 companies that have it. Got to dig in. I always do. We choose destinations and locations because of the weather. I've told you guys before, I'm getting up there. I grew up in Michigan. I've lived in Florida for a long time. I went to school down there. Didn't care for it in my 20s. Because I wasn't done skiing. I wasn't done with winter. So I moved to Colorado, and I got to be honest, I'm absolutely getting tired of Colorado weather. Now it's December, it's early December, I'll put it that way. And we have yet to have any snow in the Front Range, which is Denver. And they measure Denver snow based upon the airport, out at DIA. So there's tons of snow happening in the mountains. They're making a bunch of it. But we haven't even had winter yet. But still, what I'm getting at is that I am tired of snow. I really am. I've had it most of my life, with the exception of the time I lived in Florida, and I'm done. A lot of you guys feel the same way. Maybe you grew up in an area that never had snow. So weather does come into a huge, I guess, part of your decision when you're looking at where you want to go. And there are just people like me that, if I was a traveler right now and someone said, "I've got this great assignment paying a huge amount of money in Buffalo, New York," and I was licensed in New York, I'd be like, "Yeah, well, you can keep it. I don't want to go to Buffalo. I've been there. By the way, awesome town. Really cool little. I think Buffalo's a great area, but you could not pay me to go there right now with my certain situation because I don't want to be that cold right now. I'm done with that. 10 years ago, absolutely. I would have gone there in a heartbeat. Right now, no thank you. That lake effect, forget about it. I don't want to be in that. So weather does come into play. There are people that are the opposite. There are skiers. There are people that want, maybe they didn't experience any change of seasons and really want to be someplace that has some weather so they can kind of get that. Everybody is different, but obviously weather is a big part of locations and why you choose to where you want to go. As I think, the one thing I think that a lot of agencies forget about is people. You guys are going to locations right now, I think because of people. Family, friends is what I'm talking about. Could be other travelers, but a lot of things that I see right now, people are looking for certain locations because they want to be by family. Let's be honest. We have been separated by our families for a couple of years now. I know things are better, but people still haven't, I think in my opinion, gotten back to life. So I think I know there are travelers out there, because you guys have shared this with me, that are looking for destinations and looking for certain locations that get you back to reconnecting with the people that you care most about. I think that's a wonderful aspect about what we're dealing with right now. You can actually now take an assignment to get close to your parents, to get close to your kids, get close to your siblings, your nieces, your nephews, your aunts, your uncles, and it's a really wonderful way to reconnect with, I think, the people that we've kind of gotten disconnected from over the last little bit. And to me, it's one of those other new kind of wrinkles. We always saw that, I really want to go be close to my parents. They're getting up there, or I miss my daughter and I just want to spend some time with my family. Now I'm seeing that and hearing that as a pretty common reason for wanting to take a destination. Obviously, that has less to do, if anything, with how much it pays and the weather, right? With things we just talked about, or the reputation of the facility. You're going to go there because you want to be by family, and that's the most important thing, and nothing else is going to matter. Just you're hoping that there is a need with your specialty in it and that you win the job, right? That's the way it is. But to me, it's kind of a cool, I guess, it's always been there, but it's more front and center now, and it just kind of, it makes us realize, I think, and I'll just get philosophical for a minute, it makes us realize that as humans, we need that. We need to be around the people that care about us. We need to be around the people we care about. And you can see when that's disrupted, it becomes more important to us, which I think is a really great, wonderful quality about being human, is that instinctively we want to be around the people we like, I guess, for lack of a better word. So there you go. Last thing on this little kind of note I'm talking about is the adventure seeker. Now, I got a good friend of mine, and I know you're listening, who I'm trying to get on here. Repeatedly, I keep bugging her. When are we doing our show? And she's an adventure seeker. That's her thing. And I love those. And there's a lot of you guys out there. And I'm not talking about, hang gliding and whatever, but going places that are outside of your comfort zone. Places that you didn't think you'd like. I think I've shared with you guys before. I've repeatedly been told by people that took assignments because of money or because it was available or they were getting stressed out, and they never realized that they would really like that destination, that location, as much as they did. Then you got people like my good buddy who literally are saying, where have I not been to? I want to go there. Who knows how long I'm going to travel? Who knows how long I have in me with this? None of us really ever know. I'm going to go do something right now that I've never done before. And I don't want to tell you the things she's doing because I'm trying to get her on a location where she's at right now. I want to do this episode where we can split the screen where we're at now and talk about what's happened over the last 6 months. These are legitimate travelers that have, this is their front and center reason for location. It's less about money and it's more about the adventure. The one thing I will say is that for these particular travelers, and for those of you out there that are this way, you guys still do oftentimes make sure that financially there is a balance year round. Yes, if you're going to, Hawaii, or you're going to the Virgin Islands, maybe you're not going to make a ton of money there, or if you're going to go down to, the Keys, you name it. but you're going to go take an assignment elsewhere that's also just as adventurous and just as unique, that does pay more so that you can make ends meet. It's hard to take the lowest paying all year long just for the adventure. Some of you can do it. Some of you can swing it. And I notice those people that do that, you guys are really, really careful about your housing, and you lower your housing when the pay is lower because it's about that adventure. I think that's really, really cool. So, let's talk this way for a minute. I just want you guys to all have an appreciation for, and I know you do. God, it sounds like I was preaching, and I didn't mean it to come out that way. We live in such an awesome country that has so many unique locations to it, destinations, if you will. And I've said this before. You guys, I think most of you do understand that you're in a career that it's just really cool. It's really cool that you can do that. I can't do this. I have the same, I guess, job description, or I'm in a similar industry. I'm just at an opposite side of it. I can't just go someplace different every 13 weeks. It just doesn't make sense. And I'm so envious of those of you guys that can do this if you do it the right way, for the money, for the adventure, for the location. And that's what's so great about where you guys are traveling right now, is literally from, we talked about Maine. Maine has just, New England, that whole area, the whole eastern seaboard, the Carolinas. People talk about Florida. You can talk about, busier places like New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts. There's, every part of that. I just mentioned a little bit of our country, not to mention now you start talking about Louisiana and Texas, Middle State, Arkansas, some of the Midwestern places like Illinois and Minnesota, especially. Gosh, Minnesota's one of the places that are beautiful in the summer, colder than hell in the wintertime, but that is what it is. Colorado, where I'm at right now, Arizona, Alaska, California, Oregon, Washington, I always say you name it, but it's everywhere. And every one of these states has a different feel to it inside the state itself. Flagstaff is incredibly different in January than Phoenix is. It just absolutely is. So you get this wonderful opportunity to really be able to customize your assignment based upon your location, the location or locations of your choice. And I think that's such a remarkable perk to your career. And I've said it before, and I just want to remind you guys that when things are tough and you're upset or you've had a tough day, and I hear it. Some of your tough days destroy my toughest day. Let's be frank. Remember when you're having those tough days that you choose to do this because there are so many wonderful aspects about being a traveling healthcare professional that it helps you get through those tough days. So I can't put myself in your shoes, so please understand that that's not what I'm trying to do, but I am trying to at least help you to kind of keep in perspective that, yep, you got a tough job. Some days are horrible. And some days the whole place, it feels like it's out to get you. You guys all tell me that. This was one of those days that I had the worst day, and I saw another traveler had it 3 days later, exact same scenario, but they were having their tough day, and I had mine. When you have those days, remember, this is your career. You are absolutely in control. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever let someone else take that away from you. I don't care if it's your company, your recruiter, your friends, your family, your loved ones. You're in control of this career, and that's what's so wonderful about it. And when it comes to locations, you get to make all those decisions. I think it's so great, and we have so many different things that are happening right now that it really does affect things. Lastly, I said I'd come back to this, and I'm going to again. I think you're crazy, or you would be making a mistake if you still didn't go after dollars right now. What I'm getting at is, I understand there are some very lower paying locations that are really attractive to you because you may just need that destination. What I want to leave you with today is that, like I said earlier, none of us can predict the future. I don't think anybody can. You can have some good indicators, but we don't know how long these bill rates are going to be able to remain to be high based upon supply and demand. Clearly, as we said, it's all done by that. Hospitals are going to have to pay what they're going to have to pay as long as they have to pay it. So my point I guess I'm making is, regardless of your location, I still think you should be making as much money as you possibly can right now, and stave off maybe a destination that is a lower paying currently, because you could do that next January or February. You could do it 2 years from January or February. You don't have to do it now because you could be walking away from thousands and thousands of dollars. And it's just, again, you guys are all my friends. You listen to this for a reason. And this is just me as a businessman telling you, you just don't know how long you're going to be able to do this. It's like any salesperson is making a whole bunch of money because their product is hot. They don't take vacations and go off and spend it. They make as much money as they can because that product may be replaced by something that's better, and they don't know how long they're going to make that money. Same thing really applies to you guys. This is your career. You have to treat this separately like it's a career. And for many of you, I would say, go get some money. And maybe not the highest dollar, like I said, don't necessarily go for that, but go out and get the money and have your locations. For the first time ever, maybe be that traveler I like that says, I want to chase some dollars. Maybe I'm going to look at the rates first, and then I'm going to maybe get rid of the top ones because I don't want to be the first one with my head on the chopping block. I'll look at the rates first, then I'll decide the destination, location based upon the rates as opposed to the other way around. Just a suggestion because there's some really good stuff going on out there. And I believe it's going to last, and we'll see if I'm right. That's a wonderful thing about putting this stuff out there is I can't take it down. I could take it down, but I'm not going to. So you go back and listen to what I said before. Today I'm saying that I think things are going to stay strong for a while, and I think there's going to be some good money. I said it on a completely different media I did before. A year and a half ago, I said no matter what happens, the rates will remain higher than what they were in 2019 for a long time. And so far, that's become the case. And I still believe that's the way it's going to be. With how many people got burnt out, how many people left the profession, and just the awareness that was created about how lucrative being a traveler is, hospitals are kind of forced, and facilities and systems are kind of forced to pay more than they had in the past. And I think that's going to remain. We'll see if I'm right. Guys, as always, I appreciate it. Please share this with your friends. Let them know that we exist. Tell everybody to listen to me if you like it. If you don't, turn me off and never watch me again. But if you like what you're hearing, got some really good guests coming up. I've had a little bit of a break because we had to plan some things, but I do have some really cool episodes coming up with some guests. I'm going to jump into some numbers again real quick, and I will catch you guys next time on Travel Evolved.